Go ahead.
All
Who
right.
wants to start?
This is one. All right. This is 157. I'm going to start. I was really upset with the way the end of the last show went, and I got to say, like, I asked you 6 times to get off of Flynn so we could go on to something else and we could discuss it the next week. So I had a chance to read up on it. I granted your points, and you just wouldn't get off of it. And I got to say, if you can't conduct yourself better, um, I have the power of the purse over this motherfucking thing. I can, Carol came down, was standing there, and she goes, she just sounded sad. My whole family just doesn't understand why I keep doing the show, and there's no reason for me to keep doing something that just makes me sad. So, if you are going to keep hammering, that I don't hate America, and all this, and I'm not any more of a hypocrite than anybody else. But if you're going to keep hammering me, and if you're going to keep hammering on a subject, even after I ask you 6 times, let's go on to something else, and we can talk about it next week. I don't know why I should keep doing the show. I know
Well,
the
I mean,
fun of it. The reason is the arguing, but like, go ahead.
well, I mean, the problem was, as I said to you at the time, I watched the show again, and I wasn't yelling at you. You were yelling and waking up your wife. It wasn't my fault. I mean, in other words, the unpleasant experience that you and your wife had were because you were yelling. What am I supposed to do? It's not my fault. We're not filming in your wife's house. So if you don't want to wake up your wife, it's your fault. Hello? What happened? Hello? Yeah, what happened? Uh, I don't know. I mean, it's difficult to predict what's going to piss him off.
Okay, Lance.
All right. So anyway, before we were cut off, my point is this: it became a bad experience because you were upsetting your wife because you were
I was
yelling.
the one.
I'm
I agree. I
alone
was the one
here.
yelling, but I was yelling because you wouldn't get off this one topic after you'd made your points, and I asked you 6 times to move on to something else. You weren't
Okay.
making any new points.
Well, I was making a new point. My new point was that it seems to me that it wouldn't be if your media was informing you properly, then this wouldn't be a complete and total shock week after week. I mean, and you didn't need to research whether you'd been well informed. I wanted to point out not merely that they had lied about Trump, which I made 6 times. I was also pointing out that it's very peculiar that you don't know anything about it and
But
that you
I
have
read
to
up on it,
research.
like I read up on it again, and you know, I knew most of this stuff, and whether I have it readily at hand is a no different story. But like that, and I knew like you poo-pooed what I knew, like the stuff about yeah, he wasn't uh, Flynn wasn't charged with anything for being a lobbyist for Turkey, um, but he was deeply involved with that, and that was kind of unsavory. And then I read up on like what you're saying that it was a conspiracy to get Trump via Flynn, and then I saw that all the stories that had that angle they were all Breitbart and all conservative media. And if you go to the media that I consider normal media, there was a lot of stuff about how there was legitimate concern about Flynn's close ties to Russia, and that this might be a thing for. And Sally Yates she visited the Trump White House 4 times trying to express concerns about Flynn's close relations with Russia. And so, I mean, there's a whole alternate point of view, which is that the Obama administration and the FBI had legitimate concerns, intelligence concerns about Flynn's closeness with Russia. And that it wasn't,
Okay,
and
well,
your media is telling you that no, it was just trying to fuck Trump via Flynn.
well, Rick, that's because my media is telling me the truth, and your side doesn't have any evidence whatsoever that Flynn was a Russian spy. Where is the evidence? I understand that Yates, being a cunt, was willing to lie about Flynn, and I understand that Obama, being an asshole, was willing to try to frame Flynn, but that doesn't constitute proof when you're going to try to put a guy in jail.
I'm not talking about the later charges. I'm talking about what started everything, which was they they had legitimate concerns, and you can call her a cunt.
What were they? What were they, Rick?
That
What had he done, Rick?
that he had, he appeared a number of times on RT, Russian television station, that as a media guy over there, that he had close relations over there, and that this was something that they wanted to look at. They didn't want to necessarily screw him over, but they did. I mean, they wanted to make sure that there weren't that 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 he wasn't privy to shit that he shouldn't be privy to.
So
If he
your evidence for putting this man in jail is that he appeared on Russian
well,
television?
no, but that he was close to that he'd been working as a consultant to various foreign governments, that he hadn't been
But
entirely.
that's not illegal. That's not illegal, Rick.
No, but it
It's not
is.
even suspicious. Turkey is a NATO ally.
No, it is. It is suspicious, especially since he waited months after he had been hired by Turkey or by a company working with the government of Turkey to become a lobbyist for Turkey. And so, like, they're allowed to express suspicion and act on suspicion. They're not necessarily trying to screw the guy over, but they are allowed to, legitimately look into what his activities if he's interacting a lot with foreign governments.
Actually, Rick, they're not. Okay? You and I can be on Russian TV as much as we want, and that should not involve the FBI surveilling all of our phone calls and then releasing those to the media in order to frame us.
Well, I read that the leak may have been illegit. The leak was probably illegitimate or illegal, but the looking into the guy, investigating the guy, is not frickin' untoward. And the whole, and I don't understand the whole unmasking thing, except that Trump has asked to unmask more people in the past year than I think the Obama administration did in any individual year. That it's not that looking at people who have foreign ties is a thing that the government does if the people are working for or interacting with the U.S. government. And there are two different.
Rick, you've said so. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying there are two different points of view about this. That
well, your
your
side is lying.
No, hold on. No, let me say
that
your side says that this was an attempt to entrap and screw over Flynn, and my side says that at the very beginning, at least, it began because of legitimate concerns that he may have had, improper ties with foreign governments, and they're allowed to look and see if it's a thing.
You already said that.
Okay.
And then I said, do you have any evidence of him doing anything that would represent a danger to the United States and spying or treachery with Russia or any foreign government?
And there's like the stuff where, again, I only looked at it for like a half hour before the Tonight Show, but he's discussing Russia. He's discussing Russian sanctions with Kislyak before the Trump administration. The sanctions imposed by the Obama administration, Flynn was discussing with Kislyak before the Trump administration took office.
Actually, Rick, he had the discussion on December the 29th of
Okay.
2016, and 17 days later, Trump took office. So
Yeah.
it's perfectly normal for the new head of national security to converse with his counterpart in Russia 2 weeks before the president takes office. That's normal, Rick. So your side lied to you about that. Now, your side also lied in that there has never been one shred of evidence of Flynn ever having any secret ties or traitorous ties with any foreign governments. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, Flynn, it turns out, wasn't even unmasked. It turns out that Obama simply was surveilling his phone calls the whole time. That even though he was a private citizen working for the Trump campaign, Obama was continuously listening to his phone calls, which is against the law.
Well, how do you know? How do you know Obama was listening to his phone calls? Because there's the FBI. Now, wait, so hold on. The
I'm going to
FBI
answer
was.
your question.
Yeah, but
I'm
hold
going
on.
to answer your
No,
question.
because I'm going to hold on. The FBI was listening to his phone calls. I don't think there's evidence that Obama was privy to all the fucking phone. Some
Yes,
agents.
there was, Rick. Actually, there
What
was.
was it?
Sally Yates said that Obama was familiar with secret material that he could only have known if Flynn's conversations were being relayed back to Obama.
Okay, so he wasn't listening. So he wasn't listening to all of fucking Flynn's phone calls. He was being briefed on shit.
No, Sally Yates, who was the Attorney General, the Assistant Attorney General, has stated in intelligence hearings before the House of Representatives that Obama was aware of the contents of Flynn's phone calls.
Okay, so he could have been briefed on the contents of the phone calls.
So he was surveilling on Flynn.
He was briefed. I mean, we're pretty much saying the same thing, except you're saying it in a way that makes it sound sinister. But he was briefed.
Because it is sinister, Rick. Rick, it is sinister. The president does not have the right, morally or perhaps legally, to listen to your phone calls if you haven't committed any crime. Did you know that, Rick?
I don't know. I don't fucking know what the law is.
Well, it's actually true, Rick. The truth is that in the United States, President Trump doesn't have the legal right to listen to your phone calls unless there is a lot of evidence that you've committed a crime, espionage with a foreign government. And Flynn had not committed any crimes or espionage with foreign governments because the FBI submitted a report that was signed by Comey on January the 4th, 2017, stating that there was no evidence that he'd committed any espionage or collusion with the Russians.
Okay, so he submits the report, and then it's done. And then 16 days later. Okay.
And then it's done. But the FBI decides that they're going to try one more time to catch him in a perjury trap.
Okay.
And then they lose the report that they wrote. So we don't even know what they think he said. There isn't even any evidence of what he said. And then they take him to court. They drain him so that finally he's completely bankrupt, millions in debt. He loses his house, and then they tell him, we're going to do the same thing to your son. And all because of a lie that there's no evidence for because the FBI deliberately lost the report.
All right. Well, all right. So
that makes Flynn a Russian spy, right, Rick?
No, but I mean, and I'm going to say what I always say. Now, you think Wikipedia is a liberal conspiracy, but just read the Michael Flynn article on on Michael Flynn, and you get an idea of just kind of his biography. He did a lot of stuff. He was head of the Defense Intelligence Agency under Obama from 2012 to 2014, which is the top, I don't know, ranked uh, spy agency, I guess, for the U.S. military. And so he did a lot of stuff. He was a fucking general, and then he was a retired general and a consultant to various, governmental and non-governmental organizations. And we can talk
So he must
about
be a Russian spy.
no,
Is that your proof
but
that he's a Russian spy?
I'm not saying he was a Russian spy, but I am saying that there seems to be that there was some legitimacy into at least the original FBI investigation
And
that
what is
ended,
that
as you said, on
legitimacy? What is
January
it? What
4th,
is the what is
2017.
the evidence for? What is the evidence for that, Rick? Just that you read it in
He had a lot of
Wikipedia that there was legitimacy? What is the evidence? What did
that
he do? What did
he
Flynn
had a
do?
lot of close ties with Russian governmental people.
Doing what?
He goes on Russian TV all the time. He gets paid to give speeches. Um,
So that means that Bill Clinton is also a Russian spy because he received $500,000 for giving a speech after his wife approved a deal that gave 20% of our uranium to the Russians. I guess
So, I
that
mean,
means
I've
Clinton's a
said
spy
that
too?
bullshit like a gazillion times. But anyway, so investigate Bill Clinton, investigate fucking Hillary Clinton. As a matter of fact, the fucking FBI did investigate Hillary Clinton a number of times. Um, and yeah, investigate them. That's fine. It's
Okay,
you're
and when
allowed.
they find that they're and okay, fine. So you're saying that if someone is on Russian TV and knows people in the Russian government, then that means their phone needs to be surveilled and they need to be framed in a perjury trap and put in jail? Do you know, by the way, I didn't bring this up last week because I'm going to add this to the question. Do you know that the Judge Sullivan, actually accused Flynn of treason and that the punishment for
Yeah, I read that
treason is
this
death?
earlier this evening. He speculated as he asked somebody whether Flynn should be charged with treason.
He said that
I
in
don't know if
court. He didn't ask somebody.
yeah,
He announced it in court. So do you think
yeah.
that Flynn should be executed for appearing on Russian TV?
No, but no.
Okay,
But
so
should he
there,
be
you really don't have
investigated?
any evidence. You don't have any evidence at all of any crime, do you, Rick?
What are we arguing about? I'm just arguing that look, he's going to be let off, and yeah, that he lied to the FBI, but the underlying charges.
We
You
don't
call it
know that he
a
lied about the FBI because the FBI lost the report. They lost the 302. There
yeah,
was a 302. Do you know what a 302 is?
yeah, we talked about it last
Do you
week.
know what a 302 is? Well, I'll say it again for our millions of listeners. A 302 is a report that an FBI agent writes right after meeting with somebody. And Flynn, the 302 wherein Flynn was supposed to have made a lie, has gone missing. The FBI never produced it. So how do we know he lied at all?
Okay, so I mean, so all right, so they're looking. The judge Sullivan in the case is looking at people. Everybody thinks that eventually he will drop all charges against Flynn, but in the meantime, he's looking at what his legal options are. After Bill Barr's Justice Department submitted a motion that charges against Flynn should be dropped. And Judge Sullivan, who was appointed judge at various levels by three different presidents. He was first appointed to the bench by Reagan, then by G.W. Bush, and then by Clinton to his current position. He's been a judge for 36 years. So he's asked somebody to submit an amicus brief to respond to the motion to dismiss charges against Flynn. He's also hired a lawyer who's represented Kavanaugh and then I think maybe Hillary Clinton's a powerful lawyer to represent the judge himself in this. So it's ongoing, but everybody expects that the judge will eventually, not everybody, but most people think that it's likely that all charges against Flynn will be dropped. Um, and and I want to move on from this. So our disagreement is
Do
going
you
to
know of
be,
anything good about Flynn? I'm just curious. Has your media and Wikipedia told you anything good about Flynn?
yeah. I mean, they said he ran the DIA for 2 years, and
So
he
what?
was had a lot of high priority assignments. He was in the military for 33 years, and he
Do you know what he
performed well
did?
in a variety of assignments. Hold on, what are you going to just? He performed well in a variety of assignments across 33 years, and a lot of critical places throughout the world. Um,
He was one of the
and I
most
mean, he would,
important people. Can you hear me?
yeah.
Is somebody else speaking?
Not
Who's
that I
talking?
know. I can't hear anybody. I don't
Okay,
hear
so
anything.
Flynn was a key. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah,
Can you hear me?
yes,
Well, anyway,
yes, yes.
Flynn was a.
I can hear you.
I
I don't know
can't
what's.
hear what you're hearing.
I
All right,
can hear
stop
you. You
filming.
can't hear me. Stop. Cut, director. We got some kind of tech problem.
So
All
who
right.
are you talking to just then, Rick? Were you talking,
I
JD?
wasn't talking. I was taking a drink. I had a cup in front of my face, a glass.
All right. Can you make a mark of where this was so we can cut this out and get back to it? Well, anyway, Rick, I just wanted to say that Flynn was a war hero. He did his work was very important in our winning the Iraq War. And so I'm not jumping to put this guy in prison or execute him for treason the way Judge Sullivan might. See that it's kind of sick what you guys are doing to this man when you have no evidence of any crime and when he did such important work for our country. And I just wish that you would stop torturing him and not execute him the way apparently Judge Sullivan thinks he should be. Because he said that he thought Flynn had committed treason with no evidence whatsoever.
Okay. All right. So can we move on from Flynn now?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So I guess let's start with, or next thing. I got dragged on Twitter 2 nights ago. Um, I've always been kind of surprised that I haven't been getting dragged is where, or ratioed. Ratioed is where the number of comments about a tweet far outweighs the number of likes for a tweet. And I've considered myself lucky over the past 3 years that I don't often uh, enter the attention of a lot of pro-Trump people and just get dogpiled with scorn. But it happened big time for the first time a couple days ago. I posted a not good joke, just a mediocre joke, with a picture of Kaylee McNerney. How do you say her name? Kaylee McNerney, the president's the
The
White House
press
press
secretary.
secretary.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how you pronounce her
Yeah.
name.
Um,
Well, anyway.
anyway, she was wearing big old false eyelashes, and the joke was, everything out of her mouth is as false as her eyelashes. It's not a great joke. It's just, but somebody noticed, like conservative Twitter noticed it, and I just got hammered. I've been getting hammered for the last 48 hours. Um, and it's interesting to get all the hits. This one tweet has gotten 65,000 hits, which is more than most of mine get. Most of my tweets get between 2,000 and 4,000 hits. but just scathing comments and people calling me a faggot. Did I notice she was wearing false eyelashes while I was prancing around my backyard? Um, and it's I kind of hope that I'm not permanently on the radar of conservative Twitter. Um, and it's anyway. You go.
Well, I'm very impressed with her. I don't know why you think that everything out of her mouth is a lie. Why do you think that?
Well, let me say this. This is what was wrong with the joke. One thing was that I haven't listened to her much at press conferences, so I was unjustified in saying that part. What I should have said was everything out of Trump's mouth is as false as Kayleigh's eyelashes. That would have been a more justified joke. So I admit that was. I
Well,
mean, nobody really attacked me for that part of the joke.
This week, Kayleigh did something very interesting, and you could learn something from it too, Rick. She held a press conference where they asked her all kinds of nasty little things, and she said, I think if you guys were good journalists,
You should ask me.
you should ask some proper questions. So she made a list of questions and concerns. She said that this week, both Yates, Clapper, and Samantha Power were now I don't remember precisely what she said, okay, but it had to do with the papers that were released this week, 2 weeks ago, and the papers that you refuse to believe were in the House Intelligence Committee. If you look at your email, I sent you 3 copies of papers from the House Intelligence Committee. There were 3 documents, and they were interviews under Schiff's committee. They were interviews with James Clapper, the head of Obama's intelligence, Sally Yates, the Assistant Attorney General, and Samantha Power, who held a variety of top-level positions in the Obama administration. And they are interviews with those 3. And these interviews had been kept secret by Schiff, and they were released this week because he was threatened by one of the new heads of intelligence, who said, if you don't release these, I will. So Schiff released these interviews with Yates, Clapper, and Power, and in those interviews, all 3 of them admitted that they had no evidence whatsoever that Trump had colluded with Russia. Now, this is not only ruins everything that you Democrats have been saying for 3 years and proves that you people are the liars, but it also says that Adam Schiff was a liar for not revealing those things, and that these very individuals, Clapper and Schiff, went out that day or that month and said that they did have evidence. They announced on the media, on the news, that they did have evidence that Trump had colluded with Russia, evidence that never appeared. And so the person you call a liar, this secretary, Kayleigh, whatever she is, the representative of Trump, said, why is it that you media, you quote-unquote journalists,
McEnany, sorry.
McEnany, why is it that you journalists aren't asking the Obama administration officials why they were lying about this, and why aren't they asking Schiff, and why aren't they asking Obama why they lied about these things? And so she asked, I thought, a very reasonable question. Why didn't the journalists go to these people in the Clapper and Yates and Obama and say, well, why did you lie about these things? Why did you? She also said, she asked the journalists to ask Obama why he was illegally surveilling the Trump administration. and illegally surveilling General Flynn, who was a member of the Trump administration. So she said, why didn't you do that? And that ties in with what I said last week. Why didn't your media tell you these things? And then you got all upset. So I think McEnany is not the liar. I think the Democrats are the liars. I think Obama is a liar, and Clapper is a liar. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think it's a weird thing, though kind of consistent with the Trump administration's relationship with the news media, that you have a press secretary who's, instead of answering questions, is asking questions. And
I think
when we break, you sent me the link a couple days ago, right?
No, I sent it about a half hour before the show. Let me tell you, the audience, what I sent Rick.
When we break, let me go read it, and then we can talk about it when we come back from break.
Well, it's about 100 pages, but I can tell you, I isolated one page for you, and that is, if you go to the interview testimony. Now, let me explain to our millions of listeners. This is not Breitbart. This is the actual minutes from the House Intelligence Committee. This is an official PDF of the House of Representatives. And it includes an interview with James Clapper, where on page 27, in an interview with Trey Gowdy, he admits that he has no evidence, that he had never seen any evidence that Trump had colluded with Russia. And then, after having said that, early in 2017, he went out and lied to you, Rick. He lied to your media, who then lied to us. Adam Schiff lied to us. And they all said they'd seen evidence of Russian collusion.
Well, so when we break, I'll go read what you sent me, and then I'll be better equipped
Page 27 of the Clapper interview. You can also read the Samantha Power and Yates interview, but they're very long, and I didn't isolate.
I won't have time to do that, but I'll go read that. So let's.
Okay. All right. Let's break.
Okay.
Let's break.
Okay, so I went and I read the testimony a couple pages before, a couple pages after. It's between Clapper and, I guess, Representative Rooney, not Gowdy, but anyway. Clapper talks about, I mean, basically to summarize it, is that when looking at what was going on with the Russians at the time, they definitely had malign intent. They were definitely trying to fuck with us in various ways, and that while there was what you're saying, that there was he said there was no direct evidence of collusion, but Clapper says there was a lot of smoke. There were a lot of meetings among Trump people associated with the Trump campaign and Russians, and that the whole thing was concerning. But the one thing you pulled out of it was that Clapper said there was no direct evidence of the Trump campaign plotting with Russia during the election.
Well, Rick, my concern is this. Again, you keep telling me that, I guess you feel like I hammer on you, but my problem is this, is that if you willfully refuse to understand the English language, then it puts me in a very difficult position. Now I have to ask you, Rick, James Clapper went on the news, and Adam Schiff did, and they both said they had direct evidence that Trump had colluded with Russia. Now, you have just read with your...
All right, so hold on. So if Clapper actually said that on the news...
He did.
Okay.
Yes, he did.
Then I guess he was lying.
Yeah, and so was Schiff, because Schiff, that was, Clapper was, Clapper and Yates and Power were the people that were most in charge of the Obama administration underneath Biden and Obama himself. So if each of them say that they have no direct evidence that Trump colluded with Russia, and then Adam Schiff gets on the TV and says, I have direct evidence that Trump colluded with Russia because of the things that he had just heard from these witnesses, then that means that Adam Schiff is also a big fat liar.
Well, I don't know, because then we'd have to take another break and I'd have to read what Adam Schiff actually said.
Adam Schiff actually said on many occasions that he had direct evidence that Trump colluded with Russia. He has not produced that evidence.
So just to move things along without taking another break, if Schiff said that, then Schiff apparently wasn't telling the truth based on what I just read. Though what I just read was heavily redacted, but Clapper is saying that he didn't have direct evidence. He had a bunch of indirect evidence of what I'd call smoke.
Well, it's not indirect evidence. It's people having meetings with the new administration. That's normal. If your guy Biden is about to become president, a couple of weeks before he takes office, his people will be contacted by many governments, among them the Russians. So what Clapper was saying was deceptive. He said he had no direct evidence that Trump colluded with Russia. Now, it was up to him and to Schiff to come out in public and say that they had no direct evidence, and for them to keep the Russia investigations going for 3 years was an elaborate, cruel hoax. It was an attempt to destroy Trump by lying. How do you feel about that, Rick?
It's something that we can keep arguing about it, but I want to leave it here and say that I'll read up on what Clapper and Schiff said over the past 3 years, and then get back to you. We can either do it now, take another break. I can read a couple articles, or I can do it over the next week. But right now, I will give you that if they said that based on the testimony and what you say, if taking that at face value, then believing you when you say that Schiff kept saying there was direct evidence, then having not read anything else, but taking what you're saying at face value, I'm saying, yeah, then Schiff was lying. And we can move on. Or we can take a break and I can read what Schiff actually said. But let's move on. Let's move on to other shit.
I feel violated too. You were very angry at me last week. Well, I get to be angry too. I'm not angry, but I get to feel violated too. Now, year after year, I provided you actual documents. Here I provide you with 3 documents that are signed by the House of Representatives Intelligence Committee. And that's not good enough. You still have to research. Maybe there's another side by Schiff. My point is, at a certain point, when do you just say, if Lance is saying this and he says he has proof, I may as well just believe him. I don't need to read several articles in Wikipedia that'll massage the truth a little bit.
Because last week, when you were talking about Obama and Biden in the Oval Office conspiring to nail Flynn, then I go and that this is in the news. This has been established, and then I go and I read about it, and the only news outlets that are saying that, putting it in those terms, are Breitbart and news organizations even more right-leaning than Breitbart. And when you look at other stories, it's that they had meetings that expressing that you're right. When a new administration gets ready to come in, between Election Day and the day they take office, the roughly 3 months, that the people in the new administration get briefed by intelligence agencies and other governmental figures on the state of the world with regard to various countries and probably lots of other shit. And the concern that what I read in the stories I read about what was happening in the Oval Office was, should we be concerned about Flynn being at these briefings? Do we need to find out what his relationship with the Russians? Do we need to look further into his relationship with the Russians? And that's a whole different thing from. And you can disagree with that deal, but that's what I read. And everything that I read about, it was Biden and Obama plotting to get Flynn, was in conservative press, and in the in the regular press, it was they had concerns. So
let me just tell you something about your press, because this leads to another subject. This week, your press prevented you from hearing a call between Biden and the president of the Ukraine, didn't they?
You sent it to me. I haven't read it yet because I barely do anything, really.
No, but I'm just curious. A week has gone by since this was released. Did your press report that to you?
I wouldn't know if they have, because I've been dealing with my wife who's been sick and mostly looking at coronavirus coverage. So I don't know if it's been.
Well, I'll tell you something, Rick. If there was a secret call between Trump and a foreign leader where there was a possibility of a bribe going on, I'll bet your press would have told you that, don't you think? Somehow it would have gotten through to you.
I just said that I haven't fucking been paying attention to anything except coronavirus shit and my wife. So I wouldn't know if there's been coverage of the call. But if you want to break again,
did you read Twitter at all this week?
What?
Did you read Twitter at all this week? Were there any articles in Twitter that were from left-wing sources?
I looked at a lot of Twitter this week.
But at no point was it ever mentioned to you that a call had been released between Biden and the president of the Ukraine.
Not that I saw.
Okay, fine, Rick. So the thing is, what I've been trying to tell you for 3 years is that, now I don't want to arouse your ire, but I believe that your media is brainwashing you, because it's really, really important when we have actual phone calls being released of your candidate possibly giving a bribe to the president of the Ukraine.
All right, so we can't talk about something of a headline. Hold on. So we have to take another break. I have to read it because it's not fair. You sent me the transcript. It's not fair for you to talk to me about the call with me being able to read the transcript. So let's take another quick break.
No, wait. Before you read the transcript, I'm going to make a point about the media. Okay? Because I knew that you don't trust any right-wing media. Okay? So it has to be a Democrat source. I heard the exact same conversation reported by the Washington Post and by the New York Post. Okay?
Okay.
The Washington Post left out the most important information deliberately. So you would have no idea what happened. They did report it, Rick, but they reported it in such a way that they left out the paragraph where it's obvious that Biden is giving a bribe. So what I'm saying is, even if you did hear it in the Washington Post article, you still would think that Biden was a great guy, because they left out part of the phone call.
All right, you sent me the New York Post coverage, so give me a second. Sorry, I'll be back.
They left. All right.
Okay.
All right. We'll take 10, Director. Director? He's got to read something now, so we'll have to cut. Wait a wait.
All right. So I read the article you sent me from the New York Post, which I believe is owned by Rupert Murdoch, right? So it's pretty much Fox News as a newspaper. And then I read an article in The Hill. I didn't read the Washington Post article because it's behind a paywall, and I'm too fucking cheap to go behind the paywall. Um, Basically, the article, it says that audio was released showing Biden, who was representing the Obama administration at the time, saying that Ukraine doesn't get $1 billion in U.S. aid unless they fire this prosecutor, Shokin, that dozens of countries and a bunch of people in Ukraine itself had said was a corrupt prosecutor investigator. So anyway, wait, are you?
All right,
Okay.
Rick. So now this is how you don't learn. Okay, this is how you stay brainwashed. Let me explain what I did. In order to make it as easy as possible for you, I sent you an article that actually has the phone call. You can actually listen to the phone call. You don't have to read what the Democrats lie about the phone call.
No,
You
but I
can
read
hear
the
the phone
article,
call
which
itself.
in the paper that you wanted me to read from the New York Post,
Yeah,
which has
I
the
understand that, but Rick, do you want to be misinformed or do you want to actually hear the phone call?
you said read the article has the
So
paragraph
you
that's the
you you
it's
didn't hear the phone call. Do you want
no
to
I
go
did
back and listen to the phone call?
no well you
It's all
the article has the paragraph transcribed, right? Is it,
no,
how am I
no,
going to be
no.
more convinced of anything if I hear the words rather than read the words, right? The article has the paragraph you're concerned about.
Rick, you need to go back upstairs and press the little white arrow in the
Okay, but
red square so
what
you
does
can
it
hear the
have
phone
that the
call.
transcription in the article you wanted me to read doesn't have?
The article is not a transcript of the phone call. If you want, I'll play the phone call to myself right now, and then I'll repeat what I remember. It's only a few paragraphs. Will that be adequate to convince you? Have I? I mean, I'm afraid you'll
Well,
say
I
that I
don't know what I'm
lied. I'm a
missing
right
here, but
winger.
all right, let's take a fucking break and I'll go listen to the phone call. It'll give me
Okay,
one
very
fucking
good.
minute. All right.
Very good. Very good. Okay.